For those of you who aren't familiar with Equality Illinois, we are the state's largest LGBT equality advocacy organization. This year, we're celebrating our 20th year of fighting, securing, defending, and protecting LGBT equality in every corner of the state. And for those of you who are familiar with our victories, we have many under our belt. In these 2 decades of fighting for LGBT equality, we achieved one of the nation's earliest hate crimes laws that covered sexual orientation and gender identity in 2000. In 2005, we fought for and achieved the Human Rights Act amendments, which provide work-based discrimination protections, among others, and specifically include sexual orientation and gender identity as categories. In 2010, early on in that year, we celebrated the passage of Safe Schools Act, which requires that every single school district and every single school in the state of Illinois have, maintain, and report on anti-bullying and anti-violence policies. And we know how important that is for LGBT children who are just coming to terms with their sexual orientation in our state schools. And of course, last year, we were so happy that our state legislature passed the Religious Freedom Protection and Civil Union Act. And that is why we're here today to talk to you about that law.
So good evening, and thanks everybody for coming. It's a great turnout. I'm Caroline, and I'm the field director for Equality Illinois. Just to give you kind of an overview of how the rest of the evening is going to go, I'm just going to give a brief kind of background on how we got from the introduction of the legislation to the passage of it. And then Bernard will just give a very general overview of the bill itself, and then from there we'll just take your questions, because I'm sure there will be a lot of wonderful questions from the crowd. There always is. So just to give you guys, like I said, a general brief overview of how we got here. In about 2007, Representative Greg Harris, who is now one of 3 openly gay state representatives, introduced this bill, and it was with Equality Illinois, Lambda Legal, ACLU, the various different groups behind it. And the reason it was civil unions and not marriage at that point was that the magic numbers in the different chambers, 60 in the House, 30 in the Senate. And we knew that with marriage the votes weren't there, but with civil unions it was almost there to at least get there. And I want to reassure everybody, because this always comes up as a question, this is a stepping stone, and it's a great way to give people and couples rights right now that are needed. But it's not the end, and it's not the the do-all end-all. We still plan on moving forward to marriage, but clearly we have to get through civil unions first, and the law has to be implemented and effective before we can do that. So, I mean, this was an effort on a lot of individuals' parts, organizations' parts. We had a great, again, ally in Representative Greg Harris in the House, and just the legislature in general. But a lot of the work, and I'm sure quite a few of you participated in some of this work, was done, through knocking on people's doors. I always laugh because we literally stood on street corners asking for people to sign letters in support of the bill that we could then give to the state representative or state senator. And you'd be amazed. We had a mom in Springfield who said, "I want to help. What can I do?" She said, I can door knock. I can do whatever you want." I said, "Great. Let's go to the Springfield Farmers Market. And let's see how it works." And the first day we did it together, and we got, I don't know, I guess a little less than 100 letters signed, and this is in Springfield. So we were actually very pumped, because that's a great, it was just a great showing in an area, that people don't always necessarily think is going to be supportive. And she actually kept going out herself, and I think in the end got about 600 or 700 letters signed. So, it's a testament that there are a lot of people out there that support this and are willing to, take a step and say that they're supportive. We did various different lobby days each year on the civil union bill, and as we grow, we've tried to also cover more of the state. So this past year, we actually had a bus leave from Carbondale, stop in Belleville, and go on to Springfield, and then we also had a bus leave from Oak Park, which stopped in Bolingbrook, and then went on to Springfield, and then of course, Chicago, where our office is located, we had 2 buses leave. So it's very powerful when you have, 4 or 5 busloads of people come into the State House and lobby for this kind of a bill. The other part, too, is that we had a lot of religious support on this issue. It was one of the things that I actually had to learn, that there are a lot of supportive clergy out there. We asked folks to sign a petition in support of the civil union bill, and I think at the end about 275 to 300 clergy signed this in support, and this is all across the state. This isn't just in one part of the state. And numerous more congregants, probably 600-700 congregants. And so we're also trying to continue that work now, that if there are any clergy who are willing to perform the civil union, either in their sanctuary or as, as a clergy member, we're collecting those, that information as well, so that people know if they want to have a religious ceremony that they can go to, they know for sure they can go to a place where they'll be welcome. So again, a lot of this effort was done through, individuals like yourself who cared about the issue, who made the phone calls, who collected the letters, who, got up at 4 o'clock in the morning to catch the bus to go to Springfield. It all really made a difference. And, in the end, I don't think there was nothing more exhilarating than on November 30th when the House voted on it. And, like I said, magic number is 60. You see it hit 60 and then go a little bit above that. And then the next day, the same thing in the Senate. I mean, it was one of those moments that, you don't forget. And then, of course, when January 31st came around and the governor signed the bill. So, again, I just wanted to give you kind of a basic overview. This whole process, I guess, took about 3.5, 4 years. I guess conversely to that, in 2005, the amendment to the Human Rights Bill passed. I think it took at least 20 or 30 years to get that done. So, we are kind of moving forward. Things do move, not necessarily quickly and not as fast as we'd like them to, but, we are moving forward. So I guess, I'm trying to stay positive, right? So that's the positive part of me. But Bernard can give just a general overview of the bill itself and, what to expect. And then again, we'll just take questions.
And I do want to say, as Caroline pointed out, that this was really, civil unions really was the will of the people materialized in a law. Every survey, time and again, shows that 2 out of 3 Illinoisans support civil unions as the way to recognize same-sex relationships in Illinois and provide all the benefits and protections of marriage. And it was really frustrating for us on the advocate side when we would hear from lawmakers who would say, well, I don't have anyone in my district who cares about this bill, and the ones who called me are the ones who are opposed to this, or religious leaders. That's why it was so important for all of you who had made phone calls to your lawmakers, who had encouraged your family members and friends in other parts of the state to call and write lawmakers, because that's what made a difference. That's what provided the cover and the political courage that lawmakers needed across the entire state to get to those magic numbers of 60 and 30 in those respective chambers, when we turned to them and we said, here are 60 letters from your constituents. If you think you have none, here are 60. If you think you have none, here are 200 phone calls. If you think there are no religious leaders who support you, the day of the civil unions vote in the House of Representatives, we held a press conference in the state capitol building itself, where we had 14 religious leaders with us, but we also delivered a petition signed by, as Caroline mentioned, more than 300 ordained religious leaders from more than 270 religious institutions and seminaries in more than 80 cities and towns across the entire state of Illinois. And we said, if you think there are no religious leaders who support this, here are 300. And here are 300 who signed a petition, and for everyone who signed, there are more out there who live in your district who support this and who will back you up when you vote for this bill. So this was really the will of the people, and it was such a great day when the bill was finally passed.